Furious George Goes Bananas by Michael Rex. George was a great big ape. He lived in a beautiful jungle. One day a man in a funny hat saw George and said, "Ooh, what a big monkey! I want him." The man made a pile of bananas. When George went to eat the bananas, the man threw a sack over him. "I got you," said the man. The man tried to lift George, but George was too heavy, so the man cut holes in the sack and took George out of the jungle. They went to the zoo. "Hello," said the man in the funny hat to the zookeeper. "Would you like to buy my monkey?" "Well," said the zookeeper, "he actually is an ape. Monkeys have tails, but yes, I'll buy him." So he paid the man lots of money and put George in a little cage. The floor was hard and cold. George couldn't run or climb. He couldn't even move. George hated being locked up. George was furious. He went bananas. George tied balloons to the zookeeper and sent him sailing into the sky. Then he ran off. The man in the funny hat found George. He gave him a pile of bananas. Then he brought George to a construction site. "My monkey would like a job. Would you like him to work for you?" asked the man in the funny hat. "Sure," said the foreman, "but he ain't a monkey. He's an ape. A monkey got a tail." So the foreman paid the man and George got to work. George carried heavy loads up to the men. It was a hard job, and it was very hot out. George got tired and thirsty, but the foreman wouldn't let him stop. Then some bricks fell on his head. George hated when bricks fell on his head. George was furious. He went ape. He smashed the bricks and dropped the foreman in a barrel. Then he ran off. The man in the funny hat found George and gave him more bananas and some cold water. Then he brought George to Broadway. "How would you like to put my monkey in a show?" he asked the director. "Sounds bofo," said the director. "But he's an ape, kid. Monkeys have tails, even on Broadway." "You don't say," said the man in the funny hat as he ran off with his bags of money. The director gave George lots of bananas and made him do all sorts of silly things on stage. He rode a cow, crashed a bike, and wore goofy pajamas. The audience laughed and laughed at him. George hated being laughed at. George was furious. They made a monkey out of him. George threw his banana peels everywhere. When the people tried to run away, they all slipped. George didn't mean for them to fall. He just wanted them to stop laughing. George ran away and hid. The man in the funny hat found him and gave him more bananas. Then he took George to a scientist. "I heard that you're looking for a monkey to send into outer space. How about using George?" "Yes, he'll do," said the scientist, "but it is common knowledge that monkeys have tails. George is an ape." Yeah, ape." "Shma," said the man in the funny hat as he counted his pile of money. The scientist put George in a spacesuit. The rocket was ready. George had to do something. He did not want to go into outer space. He wanted to go home to the jungle. That rotten man in the funny hat was the one who should be going into outer space. George grabbed the pile of money from the man in the funny hat. He tossed it into the rocket. The man chased after the money, and George slammed the hatch behind him. As the rocket began to launch, George jumped on. The rocket blasted into the sky. The man in the funny hat banged on the window. He didn't want to go into outer space either. George leapt off and opened his parachute. George slowly drifted back down to earth. he landed safely in his home in the beautiful jungle. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe for more daily stories.